Hey everybody, this is Mr. Storm, and this is an example of a game that you can make for your PowerPoint Exercise 2 project that asks you to make a game in PowerPoint. This might be the most complicated one just because there's so many things that you have to program to make it work correctly. But I'll show you how it works, and then we will talk about how I made it. So let's go ahead and see how it works. So I'm going to open the slideshow, and I have two buttons here. I have the button to begin, and I have the cheater button up here. I'm going to click the begin button, and it's going to put me into this maze. And my goal is to try to get my cursor through the maze without letting my cursor touch any of the blue objects. So I'm going to go here. So far, so good. Come around this corner here. Got to go a little slow because I might touch. Oh, it's getting tighter here. Go up through there. All right. Keep it going. Keep it going. Oh, it's getting tight. Oh, and I touched the edge. So when I touch the edge, it automatically takes me to the game over screen, and I can click start over, and it takes me to the beginning. And I can try as many times as I want. You know, game over, game over. Okay, one thing I really want to I wanted to make sure, I think I made my maze a little bit too difficult. I actually have never been able to get through the whole thing. It might not even be possible to win, just because if you can tell, I wasn't exactly touching the edge. Like, watch closely and see how close I have to get before it actually. See, I didn't even actually touch the triangle. It just got kind of close to it. So you got to be aware of that if you're making this maze game. But I've never been able to actually beat the game. So what I've done is I created my cheater button. And if I click on that, if I click on my cheater button, it takes me to the very end. And all I have to do is go to the end, click it, and I win. Okay. So that's kind of how the game works. Let me show you how I programmed it. So this first screen is pretty easy. Obviously, it's just two buttons. Now, all these buttons do is take me to the next slide. It's just an action to take me to the next slide. Same thing down here, action to take me to the next slide. But on the next slide, when I click on that, my cursor is automatically going to be there in the next slide. It'll be right here, or right here essentially, in the next slide once I click that button. Because if I switch between the two really quickly, you can see that it's pretty much where I want it to start. Now, just by looking at it, I can tell if I was clicking right about here, I'd probably lose automatically. Anyway, so that's how you get your cursor to start where you want it to start. You just create a button that that puts your cursor where you want it to begin, right? So that button puts my cursor here. Up here, if I click the cheater button, if you look at the cheater button here, when I click over to the maze back and forth, you can see that cheater button, anywhere inside that cheater button, is going to put me right here on the finish line, and I can just go over and click it quickly. Okay, and then obviously I have my you win screen. So this button right here is an action to take me to the last slide. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated. Every other shape, every single blue shape on this entire screen, including the edges of the maze, every single one of them has a specific action applied to it. And that action is on mouse over, instead of mouse click, it's mouse over, I want to hyperlink to the next slide. So mouse over, hyperlink to the next slide, which is my game over slide. Now, the reason I want mouse over and not mouse click is because if it was mouse click, then I can hover my cursor over it all day and it wouldn't do anything. I'd just be able to just go up here and click the button and I win. Mouse over means that if the mouse intersects the boundary of that shape, then it automatically runs this action. So this next slide action. So that way I can tell if my cursor is inside the boundary. If it intersects that boundary, then I've lost the game because my cursor hit the edge of the maze and I died. Okay, so that's basically how it works. Again, it's probably the most time consuming to create, even though it's only 4 slides and 2 of them are basically the same slide, and the first slide is only a menu slide or a main slide. This slide right here is pretty complicated because you have to go in and program every single one of these little shapes. Now, obviously, your maze configuration is going to be different than mine, and it's probably going to be, there might be more shapes or fewer shapes, but you have to go in and program each and every single one of these, and that's going to be kind of a pain. But if you want to do something like this, you can. It's just a little bit more time consuming. And if you forget to program even one of these, then you'll have a glitch in your game where you can just hover through objects and you won't lose. So it's a little bit more attention to detail, things like that. But this is a fun kind of game. This could be adapted to a lot of different scenarios. You can make all different kinds of cool maze configurations. You can even have different levels where you have one like an easy maze, and then the next slide will be a little bit more difficult maze and a little bit more difficult, and it can just keep going. You can have, like, you know, multiple levels here, and you've got to get through every level of the maze to win the game. So that's an idea that you can do. Yeah, that's essentially how the game works, and hopefully you like it. And I'm going to try to beat my maze one last time. Let's see. Come on, come on, come on, root me on. Ah, I lost. All right. Anyway, you didn't root hard enough. All right. Well, that's the game. That's another idea that you can use for your project. Now, these 3 examples that I showed you, you don't have to use just one of these. You can do literally any kind of game that you want. It's completely up to you what game you make. These are just some ideas to get you started and get you thinking about the things that you can do with PowerPoint. All right. Good luck and have a good time.